In 1952, philosopher Bertrand Russell used a thought experiment to illustrate a fundamental rule of logic. The burden of proof lies with the claimant. Imagine someone insists there is a microscopic teapot orbiting the sun, hidden somewhere between Earth and Mars. Since it is too small to be seen by any telescope, the claim is impossible to disprove. But if that teapot were discussed in ancient books and taught to children every Sunday as a sacred truth, doubting its existence would be seen as a sign of madness. Richard Dawkins identifies a modern version of this in Agnostic Conciliation, a policy demanding equal respect for religious belief and disbelief, regardless of evidence. Granting this epistemological free pass forces society to treat irrationality as a harmless or even virtuous character trait. It suggests that believing something without a shred of proof is a universal good. This cultural protection of faith creates a structural loophole in human reasoning. It establishes a framework where logic can be discarded, providing the necessary architecture to justify actions that would otherwise be seen as unthinkable. This structural loophole is at the core of the conflict thesis. Historically, religious institutions preserved their monopoly on truth by actively discouraging curiosity and exploration. We see the effects of this resistance in the 17th century trial of Galileo, and it continues today in theological objections to stem cell research and life-saving vaccinations. The Catholic Church's sustained institutional opposition to birth control serves as a modern example of how ancient dogma is prioritized over scientific and medical utility. Some evolutionary theorists describe religion as a virus of the mind. In this view, religious dogmas are informational memes that bypass critical thinking to ensure they are passed from one generation to the next. When a society collectively abandons the burden of proof, it builds an environment where theological fiction is legally and culturally permitted to stunt human progress. The friction between dogma and data has consequences far beyond the lab. In fundamentalist frameworks, strict adherence to ancient scripture can systematically override basic human empathy. This failure of empathy has a documented body count. One study identified 140 children who died because their Christian parents substituted necessary medical care with prayer. There are also direct sociological links between Christian fundamentalism and corporal punishment. Many practitioners believe their scriptures specifically command them to use physical violence against their children. We see a similar pattern in fundamentalist interpretations of Islam, where ancient dogmas normalize honor killings, child brides, and systemic violence against women. Placing the imagined desires of an untestable creator above human life transforms personal devotion into a mechanism for subjugation. At the macro level, exclusive religious moral codes manufacture extreme group solidarity. As researcher John Harting argues, this fosters a rigid us versus them mentality. This tribalism relies on the dehumanization of the outgroup. People outside the faith are framed as less worthy, or in extreme cases, as not fully human. History shows the endpoint of this dehumanization. During the Crusades of the 13th century, a papal legate gave the order to slaughter an entire city with the command, "Kill them all, God will recognize his own." Modern religious terrorism operates on the same logic. It provides perpetrators with the absolute certainty that an omnipotent God supports and rewards their violence. Holy war and terrorism are the inevitable endpoints of organizing a society around mutually exclusive truth claims that cannot be questioned or proven. Sigmund Freud viewed these authoritarian structures as a form of neurosis, a fantasy structure that humanity would eventually need to outgrow to reach maturity. Karl Marx offered a sociological critique, arguing religious doctrine encourages people to accept their misery on earth rather than changing institutions that cause it. Albert Einstein proposed a different foundation for behavior. He believed that ethical conduct should be based on sympathy and social ties, rather than the fear of punishment or the hope of a reward after death. Modern sociological data supports this shift towards secular ethics. As nations develop higher life expectancies and lower infant mortality, religious adherence consistently drops. The reduction of starvation and early death systematically removes the emotional and economic needs that religious dogmas were designed to exploit. Leaving the teapot behind is a shift toward a world where ethics are rooted in human empathy rather than an unfalsifiable dogma. It is a necessary step toward building a society based on shared reality.